What's up, Otaku fam? We are the Otaku Couple, back more reactions here for the channel with some more Emirichu. It's been a while since we did some solo Emirichu content just because she's been doing all this stuff over on her new collab channel with Dyed Spilled Ink, which we are going to continue to react to because y'all have been loving those videos. Thank you for all the support on the last one. I was a little worried. It was about an hour long because we ended up participating in the couples drawing challenge with them, but you guys really seem to like that, so I'm glad. Thank you guys for allowing us to make the content that we want to make and letting it thrive here on this channel. It's always appreciated because every time we branch out, it either does really well or it does really bad. There's no in between. And I'm okay with that, to be completely honest. You guys know what you want, and we're going to keep giving it to you. Thank you guys for the continued support. Be sure to comment, like, subscribe. Every little bit helps. The official guide to anime cafes in Japan. And we know she is the expert. So let's go. We want to go to Japan. We want to go to anime cafes. So we should probably take notes. Let's go.
Oh, big announcement really quick. So some of you may have noticed by now, either from Didus's latest video, Connor's latest video, or perhaps from the YouTube algorithm gods themselves, but Didus and I just recently launched a joint second channel called Spilled Ink. It's a channel we created to dip our toes back in traditional art and to learn some new skills, with, of course, the occasional fun laid-back drawing games. So after you watch this video, please check out that channel in the description down below. We just recently uploaded our Copic marker episode, so if you're interested in watching two amateurs try and level up in traditional art, then I think you'll really enjoy this channel. Thank you so much. Okay, big announcement over. Welcome to my Emirichu's official guide to anime cafes in Japan video. Whether you're planning your next Japan trip or just curiously observing through your screen, I'm here to let you in on all the tips and tricks I've picked up from collab cafe hunting for 2 years. Now, I don't want to call myself a professional by any means, but after over 50 collab cafe visits, I feel more than qualified to be your humble guide to the world of anime cafes in Japan. Now let's start with the basics. Where do you find out about upcoming collab cafes?
The internet.
The site that I personally use to get updates on upcoming collabs is collabocafe.com. I check this site pretty regularly to view announcements about upcoming collab cafes, but it also announces collaborations of all kinds, like pop-up shops, konbini collabs, newly released merch, and exhibits. You can browse the announcements based on the type of collab you're looking for, or by region. So let's say you're going to be in the Osaka area, and you want to know what's going to be happening in Osaka specifically. Well, now you can with the drop-down menu. If there's one thing I know about collaboration events, it's that they are fleeting and really easy to miss. So it makes perfect sense that there's a site dedicated to documenting every collab announcement before they happen. If you're planning a trip to Japan and you're interested in stuff like this, I recommend periodically checking the site in the weeks leading up to your trip so you know what to look out for. How do you know which anime cafes are worth going to? One might argue that none of them are worth going to. However, through my many cafe visits, I've learned to be much pickier about which ones I choose to give my time and money to. And I've come to the conclusion that the cafe in question must meet at least one of 3 requirements. Number 1, if the food looks tasty and or creatively put together. This one's the most important selling point for me. If the menu looks like it had thought and care put into it, then it's an automatic yes for me right off the bat. Number 2, if there's an exhibition alongside the cafe. Anime exhibitions are really cool because most of the time you get to see displays that you'd never get to see normally, like original manga pages and artwork, and I think it really enhances the cafe experience. And I've also noticed that exhibits will oftentimes have cooler merch than the cafes. And number 3, if the cafe merch looks good and or worth it. Even if the food totally sucks, if there's an interesting and varied selection of goods, I think it's still worth the trip to get your hands on the cafe-exclusive merch, if that's something you care about. And luckily, collab cafes will almost always have their merch lineup listed on the site, so you can judge for yourself before deciding. There's only a few cafes that I can think of that have managed to hit all 3 of these marks. And now, a few tips to consider when you finally plan your cafe trip. Tip number 1, travel with fewer friends. This isn't even just a cafe tip, this is a general Japan travel tip, in my opinion. I know some of you have your friend groups where you're all excitedly talking about how fun it'd be to organize a group trip to Japan, and all I can say to that is, unless you're going with a tour group where the entire itinerary is planned for you, go with one travel bestie. If you're insistent on the group thing, you guys can all go in pairs or something and meet up for all the group-friendly activities. But if you wish to preserve the longevity of your friendships, you will have the easiest time if you travel with one, maybe two travel buddies. There's a lot to do and see in Japan, and traveling with any more than that will 100% slow you down. I've seen people roll up.
Okay.
Damn,
Yeah.
and here we are planning our Japan trip. All right. Our friends in Discord are going to have to fight for that one spot.
Right, or be like, again, y'all pick your pair. We've already got our pair.
Yeah, we're going to have to do some kind of gaming thing and some kind of fighting game. Be like, all right, fight for your spot. Do you want to come with to Japan?
Yeah.
Fight for it now.
Up with their friend group of 10 people, 3 of whom
we
have
weren't gonna do
dietary
all that.
restrictions,
We were
and they
thinking
end up
like
having the
5
worst time of their life
max.
looking for places to eat at every single day. And unfortunately, at the end of the trip, there's usually drama. Don't do this to yourselves, come on! A lot of places have difficulty accommodating for more than 4 people, and the same goes for collab cafes. Occasionally, they won't even let you reserve for more than 2 people at a time. So just to make your life easier, I recommend traveling with as few people as you can.
That's good
Tip
to know,
number
though.
2,
Yeah.
alarms and calendars are your best friend. A lot of cafes are reservation only, especially pop-up ones, so it's important that you check the cafe's website information and figure out if reservations are required. The next thing to consider is when you can reserve. Their website will usually tell you what date and time they'll start accepting reservations, and if they're super popular, like the Kirby Cafe or Pokemon Cafe, you've got to be there on the dot if you want even a hope of snagging a reservation.
Oh.
I have used my phone alarm and calendar so much since moving here because there's so many things that require a reservation or lottery system. Sometimes the website will require you to make an account in order to reserve, so be sure to do that first before the reservation window opens. And speaking of reservations, tip number 3, learn how your name is spelled in katakana and keep it saved somewhere. I've noticed that some websites actually require you to put your name down in Japanese characters when you reserve, and some cafes even require you to bring your ID when you show up. Don't stress too much about being super accurate. I remember when I was booking the Kirby Cafe for Jacob and Jaden, I was frantically trying to figure out how to spell
Jacob
Jacob's name in
equals-
katakana, and I came up with...
Jacob.
Luckily, it still worked, and they were able to get into the cafe just fine. Tip number 4. When I'm booking for a cafe or event that's super popular, I will aim for a weekday at weird hours. Because there's no worse feeling than when you're in the middle of filling your information in, and then when you go to press confirm, the site's like, whoa, you were too slow. Somebody booked this date and time faster than you did. So by default, now when the reservation time bloodbath begins, I go for like Tuesdays at 2 in the afternoon. Because who's really going to be fighting me for that specific time, right? If you aim for weekday morning and afternoons, you eliminate the competition of students and anyone who has to work normal hours. As a general rule, if I can help it, I avoid doing anything during the weekend if I can't reserve it beforehand. Tip number 5. There are 3 different methods of ordering that you can expect to see when you show up to your cafe reservation,
Oh,
going
man,
from
3 whole
easiest to
methods?
hardest. Number 1 is the iPad or QR code method. This is the easiest method and requires minimal social interaction. You'll either order directly from an iPad at your seat, or you'll just need to scan a QR code from your phone, and in both cases, you can order however much you'd like, and sometimes you can even view and buy merch from the comfort of your seat.
Ooh.
Number 2 is the sheet fill-out method. In this instance, you'll be handed a menu and a small fill-in sheet while you're
No,
waiting
I
in line,
couldn't
and
do that.
all you have to do is mark off the items you want to order and pass it to cafe staff before you're seated. This is also super easy and time efficient, but make sure you double check because as soon as you hand this in, you won't be allowed to order anything else. And number 3, of course, is to communicate your order directly to a human person. Oh, the horror! Now this raises a question that is frequently asked on my channel. Emily, I don't know how to speak Japanese. Will I be okay? And I'm here to let you know that after going to a bajillion of these things, I have come up with a list of my most commonly used phrases that will most certainly help you when you want to order food anywhere in Japan. I just know there's probably some Japan language experts in the comments ready to hound me, but I'll have you know I double-checked these with other people so that it would be as accurate as possible.
I don't want to get
while
bullied
still
by the
being
internet.
easy enough to pick up. First things first, you should learn the Japanese counters for both objects and people. If you're ordering 1 of something, it would be hitotsu, 2 would be futatsu, then mitsu, yotsu, and so on. I don't think it's very likely that you'll order more than 4 of anything, but if you memorize these counters up to like 6 or 7, it'll come in handy for your trip. And here are the counters for people. So if you're asked, how many people? You'd say, hitori desu, if you're alone. If there's 2 of you, futari. 3 people, 3nin. 4 people, 4nin. And if there's more of you, then you clearly didn't listen to me, because what the hell did I tell you about traveling in large numbers? If you're planning on making reservations for things, a phrase that you should know is yoyaku arimasu, which simply means I have a reservation. I reserve stuff literally all the time, so this is one that I use a lot. Now, how to order. If you follow this very simple sentence format, you should be okay with ordering food. So first, remember that to means and onegaishimasu is a very polite please. So when you order, you'd use the format item plus counter, to, item plus counter, onegaishimasu. Just plug in the thing you want to order and the quantity. For example, let's say you want 1 curry rice and 2 iced coffees. You would say, kare rice 1つと ice coffee 2つ onegaishimasu. And obviously, if you're ordering more things, you just plug in more items and counters accordingly. Now, don't be afraid to use the Japanese pronunciation when you see loanwords that are very clearly borrowed from English. And you might be thinking, but I'm not Japanese. If the word's already in English, isn't it insensitive for me to put on an accent? Trust me when I say, sometimes they literally will not understand you otherwise. Alright, sometimes it doesn't work to say orange juice onegaishimasu. You gotta hit them with the orange juice onegaishimasu. Once you get over the hurdle of not wanting to sound cringe, it's a breeze. A story related to that. So one time, when I was in high school and visiting family in Korea, I went to a Dunkin' Donuts to order a coffee culotta, and I was having a really hard time because I said, coffee culotta juseyo. And the employee had no clue what the hell I was asking for until my mom had to come to my rescue and say, "Kopi kurata hana juseyo." And that was the moment I learned I needed to pronounce loan words like a native to be better understood. So try to keep that in mind when you plan your visit. I only bring this up because when you go to any cafe in Japan, you'll likely see many of these loan words on the menu. But also, don't stress too much about it, because if you're exploring an area that's very used to English-speaking tourists, like Tokyo, then you'll probably be fine. When you're done ordering, simply say, "ijo desu," which means, that is all. I remember before I actually learned how to say this, I would make my order and then just awkwardly stare at the employee, hoping my silence was indication enough that I was done. So, this is a very useful phrase when you're ordering food. When you're paying for the bill, if
God, that's such a mood. I feel like that because that's what we do in the States. Yeah. There becomes a very clear indication of, okay, I'm done talking.
Yeah.
Move on.
I just think, because that just reminded me, and I know I've shared it multiple times probably. I know with you, I don't know if I shared it on YouTube, but like when I went to Hong Kong and we went to a restaurant like the first day. Oh God, just the difference, because like you're supposed to like wave them down to order and stuff like that, and kind of the same thing where it's like, okay, I'm done. But like, you know, in the States, like it feels like waving someone over just feels rude, because it's like, I'll wait my turn, but it's like that's not how it works. And that was a huge culture shock for me. That was wild, learning that I was supposed to like be like, come here, and then do that, except we didn't know like how to be like, okay.
If you need the check separated, you can say betsu betsu de onegaishimasu. If it's being paid for all together, say issho or issho de daijoubu desu if you want to be a bit more polite. If you're paying by card or cash, you would either say kaado de onegaishimasu or genkin de onegaishimasu. And of course, the classic arigatou gozaimasu to politely say thank you. If you want to know how to say no thank you, you can either use daijoubu desu or kekko desu if you want to be more polite. And for an extra pro tip, I've noticed that when I go to restaurants in Japan, they'll give me like a thimble of water. It's never enough to sufficiently hydrate me for a meal, so sometimes I like to bring my own water. Sometimes restaurants have a self-serve water station, which is great, but if they don't and you want to ask for more water, you can say "ohiya onegaishimasu," especially if you want to subtly impress a Japanese native speaker. At least, I think it's impressive, because the first time I started using it, some of my native Japanese friends were like, "Where the hell did you learn that?" I learned it from Daru. Thanks, Daru. Now, there's one thing all collab cafes have in common: the free coasters. You'll usually receive these with every drink purchase you make or with every item purchase if the cafe is extra generous. They're almost always gacha, so it adds a fun little surprise to your meal. Contrary to the name, they're not actually supposed to be used as coasters. They're usually made out of a thin cardboard material, and getting any moisture on them would probably damage them. These are actually collectibles, and you may be wondering, where exactly are you supposed to keep them? Let me introduce you to the coaster binder. These convenient little binders will hold all the coasters you'll amass from your various cafe visits. And if you happen to receive coasters that are too large to fit into the regular one, there's a binder for that too. There's a binder for everything. Did you know I even have a binder to display all the file folders I've been collecting? Do I actually need these folders for any functional reason? Moving on. So for my final tip, after 3 collab cafe videos and a mountain of unreleased cafe footage, there are quite a few cafe venues I've learned to be on the lookout for because the qualities of their pop-up collabs have been pretty consistent and enjoyable. And links to the websites of all these venues will be in my description, so you can check to see what collaborations they might be doing during your stay in Japan and plan accordingly. Some of these venues include Tokyo Parade at Shibuya Parko, Box Cafe in Space at pretty much any of the locations, I think, Square Enix, Cute Pot Cafe, and the Guest Cafe and Diner. Aside from these pop-up ones, permanent cafes are usually also consistently good quality, at least in my opinion. They're permanent for a reason. On the other hand, there are also a few venues that I try to avoid, either because I had a first-time experience that was bad enough to blacklist it, or I've given it a few chances and decided it wasn't really worth continuing to go to. But I also don't want to piss off any of these venues and have them come for me for defamation or anything. So I'm going to play it safe, and I'm just going to say you can usually tell from the menu pictures if it's going to suck. So reserve at your own discretion. Also, look at this pizza I got served once. Anyways, I think that covers all the important stuff. If there's anything you think I missed, feel free to let me know in the comments. And
you're the expert, Emily. How do we know if you missed
something? Ends up being
something?
helpful to you in any way. Look forward to the next installment of my Collab Cafe series. Thanks so much for watching.
The pizza looked like one of the school pizzas you got.
Oh, yeah. Good old cafeteria pizza. Let's go.
Except it didn't look like it'd be that good like cafeteria pizza.
Look, we've heard, if there's one thing that we could take away about food and Japan that we've learned from is the cheese. They just don't do cheese very well over there, which will be really bad for you.
We'll just bring a suitcase full of cheese.
That'll get us stopped at customs.
Like, listen, this is how you do the cheese.
You will pull your mom and get pulled over at every checkpoint at TSA.
Or it'll be you.
I'm not going to be the one with cheese in the carry-on.
They'll look at you for it, though.
I'll cover up the tattoos. It'll be fine. They won't profile me as much. Well, thank you guys for the continued support. If you've ever been to an anime cafe, I'm pretty sure we asked this in every single one of her cafe videos. Let us know which one and how much you enjoyed it down below. And we will see you guys for the next video. Bye.